These are 15 vanished beauty rules women followed from the 1950s through the 1990s, and every single one still works. They did not disappear because they stopped delivering results. They disappeared because each small pause, each cheap object, each quiet habit became a product category, then a shelf, then a subscription, then a tutorial explaining why the shelf was not enough. Number 15. She melted the day off before she ever touched water. A woman unscrewed that Pond's cold cream jar, the wide milk glass one with the clean label, and scooped out a cool, greasy fingerful that smelled faintly of powder and roses. She pressed it into her skin in slow circles, dissolving foundation, powder, and lipstick traces until everything floated on a thin film. One tissue, folded once, lifted it all. The whole process took maybe 90 seconds. Today, the same principle lives inside cleansing balms that cost 10 times more, backed up by micellar water, a second cleanser, and sometimes a third step marketed as a rinse. The jar did not need a system. It was the system. Number 14. She lathered her neck and hands before her face. A white bar of ivory sat on wet porcelain near the faucet, and the foam it produced was squeaky, plain, and smelled like clean soap and nothing else. She washed her neck in upward strokes, then her hands, then her wrists, because those were the places people actually noticed. Today, the neck has its own cream. The hands have their own serum. The body has its own wash system sold separately from the face system. She used one bar. It floated. Number 13. She matched her lips to her nails and called it done. In 1953, Revlon sold a color called Cherries in the Snow, and the idea was that a woman could buy the lipstick and the nail enamel in the same shade. She heard the glass bottle clink against the vanity top, twisted open the waxy bullet, and her whole color story was finished. 2 products, 1 color, 1 decision. Today, the same coordination requires a gel manicure appointment, a lip kit, a lip liner, and a tutorial explaining which undertone matches, which season. She already knew. The color matched because she bought the pair. Number 12. She blotted once through a tissue and never touched the lipstick again. After applying 1 clean coat, she pressed a tissue between her lips, felt the papery drag absorb the excess wax, and closed her mouth. That single blot set the color, softened the finish, and kept it from wandering. No sealer, no transfer-proof formula, no setting spray. The tissue cost nothing. The rule took 3 seconds. Done. Number 11. She shampooed until the hair sounded clean. A woman squeezed Prel from a green tube, that thick emerald gel that lathered into a rich white foam, and she worked it through with her fingertips until the hair stopped feeling coated and started squeaking faintly between her fingers. That sound was the signal. She rinsed once, and the hair felt light. No second wash, no clarifying treatment on the first Sunday of the month. Today, the same clean starting point requires a clarifying shampoo, a scalp detox treatment, a pre-wash oil, and sometimes a weekly scrub just to undo what the other products left behind. She listened to her hair. The squeak was free. Number 10. She set damp hair before bed and woke up finished. A glass jar of dippity-doo sat on the counter, 8 ounces of pink gel that wobbled when you tilted it. She scooped a fingertip's worth, combed it through damp hair section by section, rolled each piece onto foam rollers or into pin curls, tied a mesh scarf over everything, and went to sleep. The mesh rustled faintly against the pillowcase when she turned. The curls set overnight with body heat and time, no curling iron, no heat damage, no tutorial. By morning, the hair had body that lasted until the next wash. Today, the same concept has been repackaged into heatless curl kits, that arrive in subscription boxes with satin wraps and instructional cards. The rollers cost a few cents. The patience was the technology. A daughter watched from the bathroom doorway while her mother pinned the last curl in place and tied the scarf without looking. The daughter counted the pins later, lined up on the edge of the sink like small silver soldiers. She never asked how many. She just remembered the number. Number 9. She sprayed once, then stopped, touching her hair. An Aquanet can, the purple one, hissed a fine lacquer mist that landed on the finished style like a seal. One pass, maybe two. Then her hands came down and stayed down. She walked away from the mirror. The rule was not about the spray. The rule was about not fidgeting, not pulling a strand forward to check it, not fluffing the crown for more volume, not reaching up every 15 minutes to reshape something that was already shaped. She trusted the set. Today there are texture sprays, volumizing sprays, finishing sprays, flexible hold sprays, touchable hold sprays, and second-day refresher sprays. She used one can. Then she stopped. Number 8. She used foundation only where her skin was uneven. A CoverGirl compact clicked open with that familiar plastic snap, and the pressed powder inside smelled faintly medicinal, almost like Noxzema. She did not spread it across her entire face. She pressed it onto the spots that needed evening, the sides of her nose, a red patch on her chin, maybe her forehead where the color broke up under fluorescent light. The rest of her skin stayed bare and breathing. Her cheekbones showed their own texture. Her jaw had its own warmth. Today, foundation is applied from hairline to jawline and blended down the neck with a damp sponge, often followed by concealer, setting powder, and a filter finish that erases the skin it is supposed to enhance. She covered what needed covering. The rest was her face. There is something worth noticing here. Almost every one of these rules involved a woman who stopped early. She blotted once and put the lipstick down. She sprayed once and dropped her hands. She applied foundation to 3 spots and closed the compact. She shampooed until the squeak and turned off the water. The pattern is not about the products. The pattern is restraint. She finished and believed she was finished. That pause between enough and more was not laziness. It was the rule itself. And it is the one rule no product category can sell back to you. Because the moment you buy something to help you stop, you have already added one more step. Number 7. She kept her skincare to 3 steps in a fixed order. In 1968, Clinique introduced a system that was radical in its simplicity. Soap, clarifying lotion swept across the face on a cotton pad, and a buttercup yellow moisturizer that felt slippery for exactly 2 seconds before it disappeared into the skin. Swipe, pat, done. The order never changed. The products never multiplied. A woman did not stand at the sink wondering whether the toner came before the essence or after the serum. There was no essence. There was no serum. Today, the average skincare routine involves a cleanser, toner, essence, 2 or 3 serums, an eye cream, a moisturizer, a facial oil, and a sunscreen. And the order changes depending on which article you read last. She had 3 steps. She never debated the sequence. Number 6. She combed her mascara instead of building it. A Maybelline Great Lash Tube, the pink and green one that cost around $1 or $2 when it first appeared in 1971, sat in nearly every makeup bag in the country. She pulled the wand out, wiped the excess on the tube's edge until the bristles were barely loaded, and combed through her lashes in one steady, upward stroke. 1 coat, maybe 2 if the first dried thin. She never pumped the wand in and out of the tube, never layered coat after coat until the lashes clumped into dark little spiders. The goal was separation, not volume. Each lash visible, each lash distinct. Today, lash extensions, lash lifts, magnetic strips, and layered mascaras chase a thickness she was never trying to build. She wanted her own lashes to look awake. The wand was a comb, not a trowel. Number 5. She carried one flavored balm and nothing else for her lips during the day. In 1973, Bonnabelle released Lip Smacker, and the strawberry one had a plastic cap that snapped shut with a little click and smelled like candy fruit and wax before you even twisted it open. It lived at the bottom of a purse or the front pocket of a jacket, rolling against loose change and folded receipts, and she swiped it on without a mirror. One product, one purpose. Soft lips. No exfoliation step beforehand. No overnight mask afterward. Today, the same impulse has been replaced by lip masks, overnight lip treatments, exfoliating lip scrubs, and tinted lip oils sold in sets of 4. She had a tube that smelled like strawberry. Nobody needed to explain the routine. A grandmother kept the lip smacker in the side pocket of her handbag, and a granddaughter reached in and found it by feel alone. The ribbed plastic cap, the waxy sweet smell already rising before the lid came off. No instructions were exchanged. The object taught itself. Number 4. She timed her root color exactly and never guessed. A box of hair color sat on the back of the toilet tank, gloves already pulled from the box, and the smell of the developer filled the small bathroom the moment she mixed it. She set a kitchen timer, applied the color with the brush applicator, and did not leave it on a minute longer than the directions said. She rinsed when the timer rang. The color deposited evenly because she followed the clock, not her instinct. This is worth being clear about. Home hair color requires following the label directions precisely, wearing the included gloves, doing a patch test at least 48 hours beforehand, keeping the product away from eyes, and never using it on brows or lashes. Rinse completely when the time is up. Those steps have not changed, and they should not be skipped. Today, Root Touch-Up has become a subscription service with custom color profiles and quarterly shipments. She bought one box, she read the back, she set the timer. That was the system. Number 3. She wore one sheer lip shade as her neutral. A dark honey gloss in a small pot went on nearly transparent and adjusted to almost anyone who wore it. A woman twisted it open, applied it without a mirror, and looked polished without looking made up. The tube clicked shut. That was her everyday lip. Today, the same kind of sheer, adjustable color has resurfaced as viral lip oils and buildable tints, each one marketed as a new discovery. The shade existed for decades. The rule was choosing one and trusting it. Number 2. She softened her lip liner with a dab of gloss instead of drawing a hard edge. In the 1990s, a brown lip pencil sat in almost every makeup bag that took itself seriously. The wooden barrel scraped faintly as she sharpened it, and the coffee brown wax lined just outside the natural lip edge. Then she dabbed a neutral gloss over the center and pressed her lips together once. The line softened. The shape looked full without looking drawn. Today, the same effect is attempted with overlined tutorials, filler consultations, and multi-step lip routines. She used a pencil and a fingertip of gloss. The whole process took about 20 seconds. Number 1. She sealed her lips before sleep with one flat layer and never bought a night treatment. A tin of Vaseline slid open with a cool, metallic whisper, and she dragged one fingertip across the surface, picking up just enough petroleum jelly to coat her lips. She pressed her lips together once, set the tin on the nightstand, and turned off the lamp. By morning, her lips were soft. No overnight lip mask, no peptide balm, no repair complex. The barrier she needed was a long-established product that cost almost nothing and sat in a tin that fit inside a closed hand. The principle was not the petroleum. The principle was that moisture only needed to be sealed in, not manufactured overnight by 7 ingredients. A daughter watched from the hallway as her mother finished the nightstand ritual, the cold cream jar already lidded, the tissue folded beside it, the Vaseline tin closing with that small metallic slide. The lamp went off. No words. The steps were the lesson. The rules were never complicated. From the 1950s through the 1990s, the routine was smaller, the products were fewer, and the pause between enough and too much was built into the habit. A jar, a tissue, a bar of soap, a single tube of mascara combed through once, a timer on the counter, a lip shade chosen and never second-guessed. None of it required an algorithm. None of it required a tutorial. The beauty rule that kept resurfacing across every decade was the simplest one. She stopped when she was done. Which of these did your mother or grandmother actually use? Leave the one you remember in the comments. And if you like forgotten beauty rules from the decades women still remember, subscribe.